I've gone on record saying someone would have to pay me to play Conquest again. But after one of my friends, who agrees with me that Path of Radiance is goated, that Binding Blade is lit, now differs so strongly on Conquest that they've played it way too many times in a row, I had to invite them on to help me understand why. And maybe, if we have time, to fix the absolute shame of my old tier list. Elut, welcome.
Thanks for having me, dude.
So, why... First of all, what made you pick Conquest back up? I know that it's... I guess, what was your initial experience with it, and what made you pick it back up again?
So, like, I never really had, like, a super strong opinion on Fates. Like, when it came out, I played both Birthright and Conquest, I think, both on normal mode, which are not very, like, deep, interesting experiences. And the stories are also bad, so, like, none of that is going to stick with you.
Sure.
And then I would hear, like, over the years, like, people got kind of louder and louder that, like, oh, Conquest is actually really good. Like, you guys should give this another chance, kind of thing. And then I played Birthright, I think that was 2 years ago. I was just like, let's just go in order, quote unquote. For some reason, Birthright seemed like the logical first one to do. I'm not going to rant about that, but I didn't like Birthright. And
Fair.
people would still bug me, please play Conquest. Please play Conquest. I think you'll like Conquest. And I'm not going to say that, like, overnight, like, picking it up, I instantly, like, was in love with it or anything. But I felt like as I would play it, like, with each little thing I would pick up, I'd be more interested in learning about it. And it just got to the point where, like, I really started to appreciate, like, a lot of the map design. And I feel like I haven't played Revelations too much, but in comparison to Birthright especially, I feel like Conquest, like, shows you what its mechanics are capable of in a much more interesting way than Birthright ever does. And in a way, that's because, like, you know, enemies actually have skills in Conquest, and I feel like the objectives are overall better and more varied. And I mean, I personally think a lot of the playable characters are more fun to use, but that's, like, subjective. But I feel like it just kind of showed me what the Fates engine was capable of, and I came to, like, really appreciate that a lot. And I still don't really like Birthright. You'll have to pay me to play Birthright again. But I don't know. I just have the Conquest bug. I felt like whenever I'd get stuck with something, there was either a piece of information that I wasn't taking full advantage of yet, or something that I could learn from, or even in the case of, like, subsequent runs, I felt myself improving because I know what to plan for long term. And knowing how to do that is like, wow, that was, like, a completely different experience. It was, like, easier, but also, more importantly, more fun. So I just feel like it's really rewarding to play when you kind of, like, get on the wave of what this game is trying to do, because it's not like there are certain games in the series, and I think you'll agree with this, that, like, you can kind of go in and play, quote, Fire Emblem and, like, have a good time. Not that you'll never mess up, but, like, it doesn't really expect too much from you in terms of its, like, specific world.
Sure.
And games like Thracia and games like Conquest, I feel like, really want you to play their game.
Yeah, definitely. I would say Three Houses does as well, and Engage to some extent at least.
Yeah, Three Houses for sure.
Yeah. So I guess, how would you say you went about getting that sense of what Conquest was and how to play it? Because that was something that every time... So first of all, I guess, what difficulty have you played it on?
So since picking it back up in, like, the last month or two, I've only done Lunatic. I still have not played a hard mode run.
Okay, so everyone's been saying to me, oh, if you don't enjoy Lunatic, you probably will enjoy hard, but I'm just like, you didn't seem to have that same issue, I guess, or maybe you did, I don't know, but...
No, well, I don't know. I don't want to speak too deeply about hard mode, but, like, from what I've heard of hard mode, I don't think all that much changes. Like, a lot of boss stats, I believe, are, like, the same. The only thing Lunatic really does is, like, where it has like groups of enemies, like if there's like a group of 4 spear masters on hard mode, on Lunatic they'll have 4 spear masters and like a mage or a ninja or something like that.
Yeah.
And the point of that, the added difficulty in that is like you can't just send one unit in there that's good against that enemy type and just clean up as easily. You can still do it depending on who it is. But like there's that one outlier in there that will make your life miserable if you send in the wrong person. Just because of, you know, whether it's attacking on res instead of defense, or it's weapon triangle, or they might even have some, you know, quirky weapon that'll mess you up a little bit.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that. But I think a lot of the stat benchmarks are very, very similar, if not the same. One exception I know about is like endgame Takumi has like 2 less defense on hard compared to Lunatic.
Is that it? Is that the only like stat changes? I mean, I guess they have different skills, but
yeah, I mean they might have like less skills or slightly different skills. That's not the only like stat change on Takumi.
When I was
but just
saying
to
it was
show
like,
you, like
when I was saying that, it was like that little bit of change of like I thought they would have like 5 or 6 different in a stat, not 2.
Oh no, it's not. I mean, from what I've seen, again, I have not played a full run of hard mode, but from what I've seen, it's not the kind of thing that, like, if you were struggling with this on Lunatic, it'll be a breeze on hard mode. I don't think that's true, really.
Okay. Not like Awakening, then, the difference between Lunatic and Hard and Awakening.
Yeah, which I need to replay Awakening, but...
Yeah, the difference is absurd in Awakening, and... It didn't feel as absurd, the difference of Hard and Lunatic in Birthright. Again, like, it's been, like, 7 years since I've last played, like, a full run. So, my reference point is definitely a ways back, but I remember it being hard, but not, like... It definitely was a brain twister, Conquest on Lunatic, and it definitely pushes your abilities and your knowledge, and there's a lot of things you can do with classic Fire Emblem know-how and knowledge, but you really need to dig into the skill system, to dig into the class system, to dig into, okay, how do I actually exploit and get the most out of this? Dig into bonuses, foods, and tonics, and all of that, to give yourself every extra edge as possible. I looked through my Conquest save file that made it to the final chapter in Lunatic, but couldn't do it. And I was like, okay, where was I going wrong? What issues was I having? Silas has 46 defense. Isn't that enough?
Oh my god.
I know, right?
Those were the screenshots you sent me, weren't they?
Yes, I posted in my Discord, actually, when I dug up my old 3DS of like, hey, here's all my, I'm probably buried now, but you can scroll back through and see them. I'll probably post them on screen or something. Here's my team from the last time that I played Conquest. And you were like, that Corrin doesn't look like he's going to be able to beat, she's going to be able to beat Takumi. And I'm like, yeah, I know. This is what you get when you have, I think it was plus defense minus luck, Corrin?
Oh.
Maybe it was plus defense minus speed. I don't know what I was doing, but because basically what I was going through was that I had such a hard I remember having hard difficulties in like the mid to late game of Conquest, and I really just felt like I needed Corrin to be bulkier. I needed someone to be reliably bulky. And so I remember doing a ton with defense-focused stuff just to get through, like, the Kitsune map and the Pegasus Knight map and all these other maps of, like, I had really big defense-focused things with then a couple glass cannon units that could come out, blast, and then swap back to be defensive. And that was my strategy that worked pretty well up until the point when you hit the final map and it's like, apparently it's no holds barred, everything goes, and everyone's just gonna die anyway. You know? I don't remember exactly what was happening, because, you know, I can't pick a game up, 7 years distance from a run with no, having not touched it before and actually get back to that point, get back in the mindset. But Was I making
Yeah.
mistakes? Almost certainly with my build. I ran out of rescue staves. I didn't have someone who had pass, and I didn't have two people with pass and a rescue staff with 2 to 3 uses, and a really good Corin. And so I guess I was just like, well, am I screwed now? Because I made it all the way this far, nobody died. Why am I just screwed out of this? And I think part of the reason that I dislike Conquest, and it's not that I say Conquest is a bad game inherently, but the biggest reason why I dislike Conquest is because the sheer cliff of difficulty in that endgame, the last several chapters hold no bars whatsoever, and or whatever the phraseology of that is supposed to use with that terminology is.
Yeah, no, I
But
get what you mean.
the last couple chapters are just absurd, and then you get to the finale, and it's like, cool. I've only seen like maybe 1 or 2 videos of people doing it, quote unquote, legit. Everyone else is just like, oh no, this is the chapter you just rescue pass skip. That's just what you do with the finale. And I'm like, that's a real terrible way to end your game if you just have, hey, here's this one viable strategy that uses a lot of very limited resources that are very useful in other chapters, that if you decided to use them, oh well, guess you can't finish the game. The final chapter is such a mess that it ends up souring me on the whole rest of the experience. Even though going back to it and on that second run of Lunatic, I remember thinking, yeah, a lot of these chapters are tough, but if you're prepared for them, if you know what to expect, you can deal with them, you can handle with them. They can be really brutal, but you feel like a genius when it works.
Yeah. So I knew we were going to talk about the final chapter. I think there's a lot of things sort of going on here with why you don't enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And like part of like my objective here is not to make you like Conquest. I can't make you like anything.
No.
But like if I can provide some kind of perspective that like, I don't know, makes you like appreciate something more or understand something more, I think then whether you like it or not, we can sort of live with that. I think the thing with the final chapter is like, one, I don't mind that like the rescue skip cheese is like kind of the way to do it. I'm not like warp averse in general. I like that kind of stuff. But also like for me, if like I see something annoying in a Fire Emblem game, and a lot of that end game is annoying when you look at it, I just kind of like, especially if, because like Lunatic, I feel like wants you to go in knowing what to expect. I don't think that I would recommend anyone, even if they're like a seasoned player, to play on Lunatic for their first run blind. I just don't think you should.
That was my mistake, definitely, because I went from Birthright hard, which was way too easy, to be like, okay, how much more of a step up is Conquest going to be? I'll bump up to Lunatic, I feel comfortable, and it was the wrong decision, but I made it to like chapter 20 or 21 before I had to, on my very first run, back when it first came out, I made it to chapter 20 or 21, whichever the Great Wall of Hoshido is.
That is 23. You're talking when you fight like normal Takumi?
When you fight normal Takumi and you have it, the Great Wall, you have like the warp point that you climb up on top of the wall and do all that stuff with. I made it, I have a memory that I made it to that chapter before I just got walled, could not progress any further, and then had to rely on other people's my unit Corins to get through and finish the rest of the game. And then I also remember getting frustrated that even the most like obviously, I don't know if it was obviously hacked or just like stat capped everything Corin still died to Ryoma's elevator because it was just Spy Yumi, Poison Strike, inevitable end. Spy Yumi, Poison Strike, inevitable end, lunge. Spy Yumi, Poison Strike, inevitable end, lunge. And just literally chip down their stats and percentage damage until they died. And it's like, well, if even this like broken like 70 and everything unit can die to that, what hope does anyone else have?
Yeah. Well, and I also think that like I don't know. I'm not gonna dwell on your 7-year-old Corrin build, but like
Yeah.
the weird part about that mentality is like this is unlike a game like Awakening or something where like
Mhm.
you kind of want to just juggernaut kill everything and like enemy phase like 20 people at once if you can. I feel like Conquest is much better enjoyed when you build to just kill them on player phase, or like going for, rather than going for like breaker skills or like overkill defense, you go for like elbow room and trample and strength +2 and defender and stuff like that, and go like a more offensive kind of game plan, if that makes any sense.
Interesting. How do you then initiate the breaking of those strong enemy positions? Because a lot of them have like hold, if I remember right, a lot of them have like holds AI where they won't attack until you're in their range, and they or like different stuff like that. How do you go about like attacking those positions? Do you just have to have a lot like higher mobility and move from outside of their range into them?
I mean, mobility can help, but like, because that's another thing about the Conquest specific AI is like,
Mm-hmm.
if they read that they are doing no damage to you, they will not attack.
Yeah.
So like having the pure wall unit that takes no damage is actually like a really bad, unhelpful thing. A lot of the time. So what you really want to do is you either want to player phase, or there are points in Conquest where you do want to enemy phase instead. And picking the right unit to do that is, I think, part of the fun and like part of like testing your awareness of everything. But like you want to make your units just juicy enough to attack, but not actually have it be dangerous for you. And I just feel like it's weird because Awakening, it's been a long time since I've played something like Awakening, but I remember Awakening being a lot of like, enemy phasing constantly, goofy proc skills, Nosferatu, just like kind of dumb stuff.
Yeah.
In my opinion, like,
Awakening is
dumb stuff.
definitely dominated by, frankly, absolutely broken, all-powerful Omni builds.
Yeah. And I feel like Conquest is much less that and much more skillful in how you build. And a lot of it is just like damage stacking. Like a lot of the proc skills in Fates are actually not really all that good. Like Soul is like fine. It's like a nice icing on the cake for someone like Xander or like a ninja or something like that.
You
But it's
really
not really
need
required.
reliability in Conquest, especially.
Yeah, and Conquest is absolutely a game that you can build units around, like just getting the damage to kill.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I just feel like it's more interesting, it's more consistent when you know how to do that properly with like reclassing and stuff like that. And like your Corrin, I'm sorry, your Corrin looked so bad. Like I
I
think
don't
she
know
had,
what
like,
I did, but I
20
think I had a really bad Corrin.
Yeah. And like that's the thing too, is like Conquest also in a lot of ways I feel like is not the game that you stress about stats too much, because in a lot of instances they're very fixable, especially with pair-ups, with going for certain skills in different class trees and tonics, etc., etc.,
Mm-hmm.
or even just like personal skills like Camilla or Elise personal skills,
You
that
want
kind
for
of thing.
something even worse? I'm pretty sure that Corrin was after food and tonics.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah,
No.
that Corrin was. And here's the thing: I thought that Lunatic, that Conquest, Lunatic, whatever, had like the preset growths thing that like pre-rolled everything, so it wouldn't be like constantly having to re-roll, or wouldn't be tempted to like reset for bad levels. Why then? How then could my Corrin be that bad? I'm trying to remember. Did I pre-promote? Like, sure, she was level 14 promoted, but does taking a different promotion path really make that much of a difference?
So it's a couple things. So one about the leveling, like on Lunatic, it's fixed, quote unquote, in the sense that like the level stats you get are predetermined, but that doesn't mean that they're not random. It's not fixed in the way that like
Okay.
Engage was fixed or FE9 asterisk was
So-
fixed growths.
So basically, my Corrin was screwed from the minute I booted up the game.
I don't know if I want to say that, but like what I am saying is you cannot manipulate level ups by resetting, but they are still technically random, I guess. Yeah. I think so. What was your Corrin talent? Do you remember?
Like I said, I think that Corrin's talent was defense, but oh wait, no, talent as in reclass.
Yeah.
Heck if I remember, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, and that is like a pretty important piece.
I don't know if I ever even bothered reclassing Corrin, and I think that's almost certainly one part of it. Like, I'll put it this way. I am not a master reclasser, I don't think, in terms of that. And so I think part of my struggle with understanding and really appreciating Conquest is because I rarely think in terms of, oh, if I reclass here, reclass there, then that gets me what I want, what I need. Instead, I feel like there's just a lot of issues where maybe reclassing would solve a lot of my problems, but I just don't even consider it as an option because I'm so not used to it.
Yeah, because the sad truth of it is like the Nor noble class is terrible. Like it gives you almost nothing. Like you have Dragon Fang with like an awful proc rate. It's like 0.75 times skill to proc. Okay, so for some extra damage. Draconic Hex is interesting, but like I've just kind of noticed like you don't really need debuffs a lot of the time if you know how to build for damage. Like you don't need to attack something, Draconic Hex it, and then finish it off with something else if you just had the foresight to reclass to the Cav line, get Elbow Room and Defender, and your pair up is giving like, you know, +4 strength or something. It's like that's already more damage than you would have done and then weakened with Draconic Hex. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's like that's one problem for sure. Like you do need to like, especially if you want Corrin to 1-round Takumi, like you gotta reclass to something for something. And it's not just like stats, although that is notable, especially if you go for like the Dragon Talent Wyvern build with like plus magic minus luck or something like that. But Nor Noble like just kind of looks bad no matter what you do. And that's another thing. Like I don't consider myself like a professional reclasser in the grand scheme of Fire Emblem. In general, I actually don't like reclassing. But what I do like about Conquest's reclassing is that it's not so open-ended that like you get overwhelmed with the sheer options. It's like, okay, there's lots of different ways you could do this, but you have to commit to one. And I think a lot of these kind of builds, like if you're not super versed in how to do it, you're not going to stumble upon one of them really by the end game and then just one round Takumi like by sheer luck. That's just not going to happen on Lunatic.
No, there's definitely a lot of planning that has to go in. Like one thing that I do distinctly remember from my experience from my first playthrough going into my second was that I knew that the Saizo map, the ninja spam map, was going to be a nightmare. And so I deliberately focused on Niles, Bow Knight, into Shuriken Breaker just so I would have one almost sure thing. And it worked like a charm. But then it's like, okay, cool, I've solved one map. Now what of the other, like, 4 that were giving me problems, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And so when you focus on solving one map, sure, but you have to be constantly focusing on building up your solutions to, like, the whole suite of endgame maps. And I clearly was not doing that, especially with my... Frankly, I'll be honest, I probably just forgot about Corrin and didn't bother training her most of the game because she started falling behind and then just continued to fall behind. And hence why Corrin is so far behind level 14 when I'm looking at everyone else, and like everyone else is like capped level 20, level 19, 18. Yeah.
Because like I recall you saying something in like our private DMs where you said like, and I don't know, I'm not gonna hold you to this or anything. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but like you said something along the lines of, I hated how the final chapter just expected you to have like this one thing to solve it. And I don't know exactly what you meant by that. If you meant like having Corrin look a certain way in order to beat it, or if you meant the rescue staves, or what.
It was a combination of all of the above, I guess. The rescue, the pass, and the strong Corrin. Which I guess technically you don't need all of them, but it's like if you don't have... And when I didn't have any of them, it was not just an uphill battle, it was a slaughter.
Yeah. And like that's the thing, like I mean the rescues definitely make your life easier. You still are allowed one rescue throughout the run. Because you only need 3. You don't need like all 4, because you only get 2 for the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
And like the thing is, like you don't have to build everyone in order to beat Takumi at endgame. You also don't have to build Corrin to do it specifically if you don't want to. But you do have to build somebody to do it if you want to get away without like losing your sanity playing it straight up. You know what I mean? So it's like I also think if you did another playthrough with like either someone in your ear or like just a little more informed about certain things, I think you would probably soften on that feeling a little bit. I feel like you'd be like, oh yeah, this is one way to do it, but then since you did it one way this time, you now see, oh, I could have done it this way another time. That might be a fun thing in a future run or whatever.
What are some of your favorite random like builds, I guess, of Corrin or of other units that you found that you've had a lot of fun with and you maybe didn't expect? Because something that I'm worrying about going into Conquest again, if I do, is like I'm gonna be going back into Lunatic because like I'm sorry, but it's one of those things of just like I guess it's a matter of gamer pride, but it's like
no, I get that.
Look, I've made it to the end game twice. Can I just beat the dang thing?
Yeah.
But like I feel part of my worry is that okay, I'm going into Conquest Lunatic. Am I gonna have to like look up a guide and like follow it, point for point to just be like, hey, all my characters are this like meta defined thing? Is like, hey, you need this solution, that solution, like a solution for every map. And it's like, okay, do I just have to like build myself into that direction? But you said that you've been messing around with the different characters and different builds. What have you found, I guess, by doing off-the-wall stuff that, like, what's worked, what's not, and, like, how does it help you understand Conquest, I guess, more?
Yeah, so, the first completed run of Lunatic that I did, I had I think it was Strength, Boon. I think for that I picked Defense, Bane. And then I picked Ninja Talent. And my whole thing was like, I'm going to try the Soul Ninja thing that everyone keeps talking about. And on the run before, I got kind of stuck on Chapter 20. That was just a huge headache. And then I started to do some research. I started looking for help. And not only was Soul Ninja Corrin like really fun, I still think that's my favorite build thus far of Corrin. Even though it's a little more convoluted at times to like the Malignite build. I'll talk about that in a second. But
sure.
Having that like in itself was good and fun and helpful. But what that also unlocked for me was like, hey, you can send your Soul Ninja, whoever it is. Kaze can do it too, but he does need some performance enhancing
Soul
drugs.
Ninja, is that like literally ninja with the skill Soul?
Yes. Yeah, that is all that means.
That's just to maximize skill, so maximize proc chance, or?
It's just for like extra reliability, like heal yourself. But the main thing, once I like achieved that, and I got back to chapter 20 with Soul Ninja Korin, I also got a very key tip, which was fly him paired up to the Hayato platform and attack Hayato after, and then you also do one of the dragon veins, like the very first turn, so that a lot of the flyers are closer to you, and you equip the hunter's knife, like you just attack Hayato with the hunter's knife.
Hunter's knife, interesting.
And the reason that was like so helpful was, one, Soul Ninja Korin was an absolute menace, but that gave me that one single play, that one single build gave me so much breathing room, no wind puns here, on the Fuga map, that I was like, oh, like that's what Conquest is to me. Like you just unlock this little thing. It's like, okay, so I send Soul Ninja Korin in here with a hunter's knife. I attack Hayato. I one round most of the Pegasus Knights and the Kinshi Knights up there. And then now I don't also have to fight enemies in every corner of the map with this annoying wind that keeps blowing everybody around. Yeah. I've already thinned the herd so much that I can think more clearly, and it's much more digestible. But if you kind of go about it in like a standard sort of way, then that map is pretty annoying, honestly.
I will say, because now that we're talking about it, you're unlocking some memories here of like, I don't have specifics, but I do now have this memory of like, the Fuga map was one on my second playthrough. On my first playthrough, I was like, screw this. But on my second playthrough, I spent so long figuring out and optimizing first turn, second turn, third turn, reset over and over and over again. But at the same time, it wasn't always, it was definitely a lot of resetting and feeling frustrated, but it was some element of like, I'm resetting, but I'm figuring out this strategy. I'm figuring out what I can do, what I should do, what I need to do, and just, okay, adjust this unit, swap places with them, pair up with them instead, use this sort of weapon, and just creating this sort of like, and that's what I found most fun about Conquest, is that when I had this kind of ragtag team of various purpose-built solution units, and then making them work with whatever the map was throwing at me, because I had at least a little bit of an idea of what was coming up, but I didn't necessarily know for sure, so I didn't have like purpose-built map solutions, but there was enough there that I was like, okay, I have my big physical tank, I can send them over here, I have these units that I can like rush this area, I can strategically use the wind here to push up here and ambush up here. I forget what my solutions were, it was 7 years ago, but I do remember feeling, like now that I think back on it and look back on it, oh yeah, no, this was like real puzzle solving, real like, the Rube Goldberg machine almost constructing of my various parts and making it work. And I think that there are elements there in which I definitely understand why people love Conquest so much, because I was feeling some of that same things. It's just tragic for me that I feel like those feelings and that feeling of like mastery felt just out of reach, and felt like I was just not doing the prep work right in order to actually have that ability to really make fun and interesting strategies. I feel like I was probably just failing on the prep work just enough to miss out, I guess, on that idealized part of like, here's what making the strategy feels like and why it feels so good. Because when I got that, like chapter 10 gives you that every time you play it, because you will always have at least somewhat of the ability to beat that map, even if you don't feel like you do.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, because it's early enough and you're getting new units. But, like, the endgame maps, I feel like they have that potential to do that, but you have to do the prep work in advance to make a team that can give you those options. And I feel like I was probably failing in the prep work, which then left me with a bitter taste on all of Conquest, because the endgame was so much more brutal than I was necessarily prepared for. Does that make sense?
No, that absolutely makes sense. There's two things I want to sort of add here. One is that one thing I noticed, especially early in Conquest, was like most of the time when I would have to reset after messing up, it was never like super late into the map usually. It was usually something I would screw up within like the first 3 turns.
Mm-hmm.
And what that sort of told to me was if you start the map off right, meaning you have, fairly developed prep work and you know individually what each character is doing at the start, the rest of the map becomes so much easier because you started off well. And that's especially true with something like Chapter 20. Like sending a ninja paired up to the Hayato platform makes the rest of the map so much more digestible. So that was like a big thing that I noticed that made the game more fun. It's like, oh, my prep work is actually like really rewarded here, but it's not like so in depth that like it's tiring, at least for me. But I also think like so we're both card gamers. We've talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
And one thing like so I mostly play Yu-Gi-Oh. I play some Magic Commander, but mostly Yu-Gi-Oh. And in Yu-Gi-Oh there's a sort of culture of net decking, meaning if someone doesn't happen to know that's listening, people if they want to learn a deck, they just copy paste a deck that some top player is already using. They lab it out, they try it at their locals or whatever, and they might not do so hot with it. And there's nothing wrong with net decking. There's nothing wrong with looking at someone who does it way better than you and trying to learn from them. But I feel like you don't really know the deck, you don't really know the game and what you're doing until you can describe to somebody why each card is in your deck. Like, if your reason for including a card in your deck is, well, this person used it and they said it really worked out for them, that's, like, kind of not enough.
Yeah.
And I feel this way, especially on something like Chapter 10. Because, like, in my earlier experiences with Chapter 10, like, some stuff would be fine, and then a few turns would go by, and I'd be like, oh, wow, this side, like, really needs a lot more help than I thought it did. And then I would think about it after probably resetting, and I'd go down the line. I'm like, okay, why am I deploying this person? Why am I sending this person here? Why is this person paired up with this person? Why don't I give this person this weapon over this one? And it's like when you just don't take anything for granted and you can describe to yourself why you're doing each action and you can understand what purpose each choice has, the game is really, really good. But if you don't do that, then it's like, oh my god, this game is so annoying. Like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. It's like you probably just need to like take a closer look at each choice. Like, one turn on Chapter 10 can easily go sour just because you autopiloted one thing. Like, you just like, oh yeah, you can kill this. We'll kill that. And then 10 seconds later, sometimes I would be like, oh man, I didn't really need to kill that. That wasn't actually a big threat here yet. I should have used you over here. And if you do too many of those, then it snowballs into this like horrible, annoying, stressful thing. But if you just are able to pause for a second and go through like, why am I doing this? What does this action provide? What does this solve? And if you have a good answer, then you're probably fine. But you have to have an answer. You have to have a reason why you're doing something. And that's the same with Corrin builds too. Like, as long as you have a reason, there's really few wrong answers.
Yeah, it's definitely the build craft and getting into the unit builds is something that I need to just kind of get into my head that this is not an optional part of Conquest. It's not something you can kind of like engage with for some units, but not for others. It's like, no, you have to, especially on Lunatic, you have to engage with the build craft. It's like playing Monster Hunter and not caring about what your armor skills do. It's like, you don't do that.
Yeah,
it's like, sure, you can go through, naked and kill stuff and it'll work, but you have to seriously outskill yourself. Like, play smarter, not harder. Take some time, look at what your armor skills do, and figure out a build that works for you. And I think that that's what I need to do with Conquest. But the other thing I was saying with, like, I was wanting to say when you're bringing up Chapter 10 is that I think that makes probably the best case for why Fates, being the last game before the turn wheel was invented, makes such a good case for why you don't necessarily, or how to create a game in Conquest where the turn wheel is not necessarily the savior. Where it's like, because like you were saying, most of the issues come from decisions that you make in the first 3 turns. Sure, you could turn wheel back one dumb move, and I think that would help, because, you know, I've certainly lost chapters, you know, turn 8, turn 12, whatever, when I just put one random unit in the wrong place, they got cornered and they got blown across the map in chapter 20, and it's like, oh wait, I was not ready to be in the boss room here. I missed one tiny thing, and then suddenly it all cascades out into failure. But the vast majority of issues do come from decisions made within the first couple turns. And if you're using a turn wheel to go back to turn 1 or 2, you're probably just resetting the map anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you may as well, for the most part. And I don't know, like, the cool part about Conquest is, like, it is really rewarding to get into unit builds because it is limited. It's not, like I said, it's not like 3 houses, like, oh, make anybody anything, hope you pick the right one. It's like, well, you do have kind of a guideline. You have your base class, and you have a Heartsteel class. Does the Heartsteel class do something for you? Depending on the character, it may not. And then it's like, okay, well, if you really want to do something specific, you probably only need to get like 1 or maybe 2 supports in order to get to a different class to get a skill that you want. And the nice thing about it too is not every character requires the same amount of care. So like Corrin, like the standard sort of Malignite thing with Corrin, or at least what I like to do, is if you go for like Magic Boon, Luck Bane, Dragon Talent, you basically play the Nor Prince or Princess until chapter 10-ish. So like if you go like female Corrin, you'll give your first Heartsteel to Jacob, make him a Paladin, and then the Heartsteel you get from Hytaka, I like to use on Corrin for chapter 10, make her a Wyvern. And that kind of lasts me up until basically Gunter comes back. And then once I get Gunter, I start using Gunter Backpack for Corrin. And then I S-support them for a couple reasons. Not story, yikes. But what that does is it gives you access to the Cav line. And Gunter is also the best Corrin Backpack in the game. Bar none.
Forceful partner.
Yeah, no, that...
literally built for it.
That skill is so good. And basically what you do then is once you get that S rank, you go to the Paladin line, you get Elbow Room, which is important, you get Defender, which is important. And then what I like to do is at some point I go back to Malignite just to get Trample. And then you can still go to Great Knight because of Gunter as well. And you're going to Great Knight just for the stat caps, because you'll have enough speed, but you need more strength.
I guess. So here's a question I have then, because you were saying Magic Boon, but then you're ending in strength. I guess because you have to end with the Yato anyway.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, Corrin's strength is like just kind of good anyways. The reason the Magic Boon is sort of chosen for this is, I mean, I guess you could make an argument for Dragonstone, but not really. That's not really what it's for. What it's really for is Bolt Axe in Malignite, and then when you go to Paladin, you can use the Levin Sword. So you have like good 1-2 range, and you're hitting on res.
That makes sense. Good 1-2
really
range
good.
Is rare outside of magic weapons or hidden weapons.
Yeah.
Or Xander.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like the main reason. And the difference with like the ninja build is, well, all shurikens are 1-2 range, so you just want more strength, kind of thing. So that's like a big part of it. But your strength doesn't suffer for that. The only way that your strength suffers is that by picking Luck Bane, you lose a tiny bit of strength, I believe. It's like 1 point of like the cap. So like your Great Knight cap for strength will be 34. But that's just enough, because what you do is if you have 34 strength on Corrin and speed to double Takami with Rally, at least, You go tonic, rally strength, Gunter pair up as Wyvern, which is +6, because that's also including the +1 from Defender. B rank in swords. Gunter gives +3 from his personal skill. And then the Yato, unless I'm forgetting something, you'll have like Elbow Room, Defender, Trample, Strength +2, again, from the Wyvern tree. And
That's
then
+26 right there, if I'm doing my math right.
yeah, it's hard to keep all the numbers. Like I have to write them down sometimes. But like basically, if you what that build does is it gives you good 1-2 range for a good portion of the game, and it allows you to 1-round Takumi. And it's just nice. Like it fits well too, because by going a flying class, you don't have to reclass Corrin for like chapter 20, like you would have to do temporarily with Xander. So it also kind of fits with like the tempo of how the run kind of goes naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you don't need her to fly around as much, you can go the cav line. And even in Hinoka's map, you can just have a flyer carry her as a cav, if you're like clearing that in 2 turns or something.
Sure.
So like it's not only good from like a bottom line numbers perspective, but when you reclass also helps generally with the maps you're playing at the time. So it's not just like, you know, information overload of like picking a class and running with it, and then, oh my god, I need a specific solution for every map. It's like they kind of go hand in hand more than you might think. And that's like a good bit of reclassing for Corrin, but Corrin also tends to do more things. But you take someone like Xander or Niles, and they might need like 1 reclass, maybe 2. Like Xander, I like to do 2 because I like to put him in Wyvern for the Kitsune map and chapter 20 and 21 as well, because I skipped that. That map is annoying. And then after that, I put him into Hero just for Soul. And like that's pretty much it. Niles, the only thing I really even do with Niles is like I like to get him married to Mozu so that he can partner seal to Sniper just to get quick draw and certain blow. And then I just keep him in Bow Knight the rest of the game. And he's like great. Like
yeah, Bow Knight Niles is great. Oh, what was that?
Wait, what?
What just happened? I just got a Streamlabs notification type sound effect.
Oh.
And it was incredibly loud in my ears. Gonna probably have to edit that out.
It's all good.
Anyway, what I was saying, Bow Knight Niles is just great from what I've experienced. He solves ninjas really well, kind of naturally with bows against shurikens. He has the mobility. He has pretty decent like stats. Speed-wise, he's great. Strength-wise, you know, he caps out at like 28, but he's still solid. You know, it's
yeah, and like I liked Niles before, but I wouldn't say that I loved his gameplay until I started getting him Mozu marriage, because like what I would notice from like mid to late game Niles is like, okay, sometimes you have like a little bit sus accuracy and the damage output wasn't really where I'd like it a lot of the time, and just going Sniper for like two skills, like 2 fairly low level skills, and then just putting him back to a better class was like all he needed to be like really good.
Sure. I don't remember exactly what I did, but looking at my screenshot, I think that's why I gave him the what was it? I think I called it 16k well spent. Because I think I just had like a +7. It was like a +7 iron bow or something.
Yeah, I mean that's another way to do it too. It's just like
because I was just like, look, I don't, you know, I've maybe backed myself into a corner. I don't have enough time to build these skills out. But I just want to keep him in Bow Knight. I don't want to travel him around and whatever else I was doing. So I just invested all my money into giving him a really good bow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I guess is a strategy, but also that was a strategy that was only available because my castle was available back when I last played.
Oh, like the online stuff, you mean?
Online, yeah, because I played on card and I played on a non-modified 3DS. You know, I did it legit,
Yeah.
which also meant that I had a lot of like visitor bonuses that other people like you wouldn't even have. So like I don't know what my excuse was. I have so much extra power than what you're working with, but at the same time, it just didn't plan enough.
Yeah, I mean it is a large part planning, I'm sure. And that will just improve by like playing the game more. And I also wanted to ask something because I've heard you say before that like you really like when like you kind of figure out the thing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think most people will relate to and like agree with. But I also sometimes, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I sometimes got the impression from you that like you don't want to hear like what other people do until you've figured it out yourself. Is that fair? Would you say?
Broadly speaking, like I'll put it this way, I want to have my initial experience with a game unmarred by other people's opinions. Once
Okay.
I've played a game and experienced it, then I'm open to, okay, what's the build craft look like? How does that work? I think a lot of times I either just don't replay games much, or I don't, or I feel like I figured it out enough myself that I don't necessarily want to hear. But there are definitely some games, like I will say Diablo 2 was a game that it took me looking up builds online to even figure out how that game works. But then once I did, I'm like, okay, cool, I get the theory behind it now. Um, it's one of those things of like the if there is an actual knowledge barrier, then I can accept my weakness and be like, hey, I need to learn more about this game. But I love having the initial experience going into it because I want to be like, I want to figure out what this game's about, try to see if I can figure it out myself, see if I can do it. And I think that Conquest was a weird issue for me because I've figured out most Fire Emblem games enough to be at least beatable, that even if I didn't figure out what the meta was, or like how the specific build craft worked, like Three Houses I didn't figure out either, but I was able to
Yeah.
beat Maddening CF, new game, mostly blind. It was painful, but I did it. um, but like, and so I felt like, hey, I did this in Three Houses, I can do it in Conquest, surely. And I think the answer is maybe I just need, maybe I don't understand it as much as I think I do, or that my understanding is somehow inherently flawed.
I would say if I had to guess, it's probably more the first one. Like I do think that there are probably things that you're not aware of or that you're not taking full advantage of quite yet. And the reason I asked that question is because I think that like I'm kind of the opposite in a lot of ways. Not that my first thought is to see like, well, what the meta is, but like I'm the kind of person that like I want to know all the rules of the game so that I can not follow them, if that makes any sense.
No, that totally does.
Like I want to do the Paladin Jacob kill Takumi on chapter 10 before the Dragon Vein Malignite Korin thing. So that with that experience I can be like, okay, I understand sort of the rhythm of how unit building and reclassing goes throughout the course of a run, rather than like honing in on like one or two chapters and like, oh, should I do it here, should I do it next chapter, and like stressing about it. Once you do it the full way through once, you're like, oh, I can apply this now to something else, I can do something else with this. I don't have to be locked to this because this is surely not the only solution to beating this game.
Yeah.
So I like to learn like sort of the top end so that I don't have to do the top end, or I can at least take the more top end knowledge and apply it to some arguably sillier stuff at times.
Sure.
I want to like see what it's about. I'm not so honed in on like, oh no, like I got to do it myself, like nobody help me kind of thing. I just kind of like learning no matter what like method it is, because I'll just have more fun, and I just know that about myself. Like if I never looked up anything for Thracia, like I don't think I would have had quite as much fun. I still would have liked the game, I think. But part of why I love Thracia is like once I got into the Thracia mindset, it's a similar kind of thing with Conquest. Like Thracia wants you to play Thracia. Conquest wants you to play Conquest. And once you start doing that and you learn about what the game kind of nudges you towards, then you open up your mind to, okay, this is one way to do it. This is potentially the easiest way to do it, but I could see how I could do this now in a different way because I've done it once. Like, not like haphazardly, I didn't stumble through it once, just barely getting through to the end, but like I did it full on for once, and now I can like take that with me, and the stuff that comes after I think is a lot easier too. So I think you'll have more fun with it, but I do think you'll just maybe have some questions on some stuff as you go through. And then stuff will just kind of become more intuitive. Like, one thing I said before was like, with Conquest and some other games in the series too, like once you sort of unlock one thing about it, the rest becomes easier because you don't have to calculate every little skill damage modifier all at once every single combat. You just kind of know that they're there, so you can just focus on like the newer stuff. You know what I mean? Like, if you just know that something is there on the map, like a seal defense or a seal speed or whatever, then it's like, okay, I know that's there. I don't have to like think about that too critically because I know it's there. But now I can focus on this other thing, and it's not like overloading you kind of all at once, which will also make it more fun.
Sure. Okay. So, I guess I'll put it this way. Probably within the next couple weeks. I don't know if I'm gonna turn it on and start it up tomorrow, but probably within the next couple weeks, I will start another run of Conquest, see how it goes, and I will not be recording it for my channel or whatever. It's going to be on my own 3DS, which I don't have a capture card for, but I will probably be doing some sort of like share play-by-post in my Discord. So, I mean, first of all, anyone watching, if you're not part of the Discord and want to follow my experience through Conquest, get in, link in the description below. But I think that could be interesting because then it's like, okay, now that we've talked a little bit and I'm actually understanding and I'm having this like, okay, I get the mindset of why you would enjoy Conquest now. Like, even from like when I watched your most recent video about it, I didn't necessarily get it. Like, I got that you enjoyed it and I got some of the things you enjoyed about it, but it didn't like click to me of like what mindset I would need to have to enjoy Conquest. Now I think I'm gaining insight into what that mindset looks like.
Okay.
And that I'm willing to give it another shot. And if I still don't like it, then I still just don't like it. But at least then I will say I've given it my blind experience. I've given it my, trying to figure it out myself experience. And now I'm giving it the adjusted mindset years later experience. And if I still don't like it after that, then I will say, well, I've given it 3 really full honest tries. It's just not my thing. But I can also then say, well, maybe it could be my thing if I open myself up to be like, well, maybe I just needed that mindset change, and it can then be something that I really understand or appreciate. Because I will say, of all the Fates games, I definitely still double down that Conquest is the one that gets what Fates can be the best in terms of its map design, in terms of its mechanics, in terms of its difficulty, and in terms of really requiring the player to engage with and interact with every level of it in ways that Birthright clearly does not, and that Revelations is really weird about.
Yeah, I just started going through Revelation a little bit just to like remind myself of the map gimmicks and stuff, and it's a lot of it is so far much clunkier than what Conquest tends to do with its maps. It feels a lot more forced with like the snow map and like dumb stuff like that. But
everyone references the snow map, but yeah, they reference it for a reason because it is so obtrusive.
Yeah, it's like, oh, press the button to unlock more of the map. I mean, the Fog of War Darkness map is kind of the same thing. It's like you can't access that part of the map until someone goes to the end of the hallway and waits, and then the room opens and you can attack people. It's like, this just feels clunky to me.
In
don't
a
know.
weird way, I will also say there were so many people when, not to make this about Engage, but there were so many people when Engage came out of like, Engage solved Fog of War, and I'm like, really? Engage Fog of War is the most restrictive, most punishing variant of Fog of War we've ever seen in Fire Emblem, because you can't move if you can't see a tile.
Yeah, no, that's so
And
weird.
it's just like, yeah, you're talking about, oh, you can't move through fog before you move to the end of the hallway and reveal it. That's Engage Fog of War right
Yeah.
there. It's with extra steps, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
But yeah, no, I think you should give Conquest like a legit informed try, and I would just say that like if you have hesitation about a certain decision, like just ask the question. Whether it's me or somebody else, like just ask. And if you get an answer that you expected, that's fine, just move on with your life. But I feel like there are like a few things that would just make your life easier, especially with like unit building and stuff like that. And I can give you some recommendations when generally I like to reclass or promote or whatever, that will just make things smoother for you all around.
Sure.
So-
One first question then that comes to mind: do you skip to the Crux of Fate?
I don't. I just
'Cause
play the first couple chapters.
I always feel like the first couple chapters are not that bad. Chapter 6 or 7 or whatever is a bit of a puzzle to figure out, but it's fine. But I always feel like I need to play those maps to really focus in on what my Corrin levels should be, what my Azura levels should be. And I worry that by skipping those, I'll just have like a Corrin or Azura that's too weak. I don't remember how they handled that if you just skip the first 7 maps.
I mean, I would just say that you should play them kind of on principle, like just to do the full run. You know what I mean? But I also will say, like, picking your Boon and Bane does influence certain things about those early chapters, even through like 7 or 8, where like your level ups don't matter like too badly, as far as like hitting breakpoints and stuff like that, if you know like what you're picking. Because as I said sort of earlier, like Conquest is not the game that like usually, unless it's like a huge terrible 22 strength on Corrin and endgame kind of number, it's not a game that really like gatekeeps your numbers too badly. They're pretty fixable in like very easy ways. You know what I mean? Like picking a strength boon male Corrin is like, yeah, he might not be doubling a lot of stuff in the early game, but you know, Felicia C support gives him +4 speed on pair up. Like that's already insane that early in the game. So it's like you.
Oh, do male and female Corrin have like different growths as well?
I don't think they have different growths, but it's more so the pair up bonus from like Felicia and Jacob are slightly different. And also the personal skill comes into play because Jacob's personal skill is like he gives more avoid to Corrin and -3 damage taken, but Felicia is +2 -2 damage dealt taken, which helps you hit breakpoints much easier in a lot of cases. I still don't think you can go wrong with either choice. They just function very differently, which I know we might talk about that old tier list of yours a little bit, but I did find it interesting that you placed Jacob and Felicia so far apart. And I think that sort of shows me that like there is some inexperience, there is some like knowledge gaps that you have, especially with certain units.
Sure, yeah. I mean, since we're talking about it, it's like, I'm not going to say we're going to fix it today.
No.
But I do just want to, like, take a look at it, because this I made... Let me just share my screen with you. This tier list I made... What year was this? 2021, I want to say? So it was a couple years after my last Conquest run, but that run definitely informed upon it most. And I think that probably fed into how I felt about a lot of these units. That plus absorbing conventional wisdom, plus absorbing biases, almost certainly. And so while I'm not going to say we're going to fix it, I would say, what are like the biggest notable issues, I guess, you would have here? Because I'm going to say this is probably not fixable air quotes
Yeah.
by anyone without like an actual working knowledge of like I've done 20 runs of Conquest, I've used every unit in every possible build, here's my definitive data.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not like a big tier list person in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I also don't think that like me playing the game 5 times on Lunatic makes me qualified to like give in-depth knowledge on everything. I just wouldn't do that. I mean, Zoran has already
Yeah.
made a tier list series with Mecha. Watch that. That dude's insane at this game. He's
Sure,
very good
yeah.
at like explaining it. He knows so much. You know what I mean? Like there's people out there that have done it. But
Mm-hmm.
the like you got some of the greatest hits like Corrin, Azura, Camilla, and S. Yeah, duh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing to say there. The Felicia and Jacob thing, they should not be in separate tiers, like straight up. Like
Okay.
they just function very differently, and I think part of why this is also sort of like back to that conquest mentality thing is like
Mm-hmm.
Jacob in a Fire Emblem quote unquote kind of mentality is much more obviously good to a first time player if you know about, oh, reclass him to Paladin or Great Knight,
Yeah.
some people do. And it's like, oh, look, he's a good combat unit because he also gets skills really quickly. Like every level up, he's
Mm-hmm.
getting Elbow Room, Shelter, Defender, and he's just like, he's probably your best unit, like by that point, like very, very quickly. And Felicia doesn't really have that kind of early game, like, snowball potential. So it's easy to look at Felicia and be like, oh, why is she doing like 2 damage with knives and like not doubling? Like, this is terrible. Like, why would you pick Felicia ever? But really, once you get into like the numbers more and you just kind of use them in a different way, they're just kind of 2 sides of the same coin. Felicia paired up with a Corrin that has a magic boon helps him hit a lot of breakpoints, especially like very early on with the Dragonstone, like where he will one-shot things. Jacob
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really do that. Jacob doesn't really give you a lot more damage from his personal skill. So you're not really going to hit the same kind of breakpoints, but you'll maybe play a little more defensive. And Jacob can be a frontliner unit if you want him to be very early on. And he's quite nice for that. But it's like, it just kind of depends on how you want to use them. And they aren't used in nearly the same way at all.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. You're definitely underrating sort of Felicia.
Mm-hmm.
I will say the the funniest one to me, I think, is Nyx in B and Mozu in E. That is very interesting to me.
Yeah, Mozu
Um,
definitely needs to be brought up quite a bit.
Yeah, and the caveat with Mozu is like, you don't have to use Mozu, but if you do, just give her a heart seal, and like that's it. Like
Yeah.
she will get good stats. The archer tree is good for more damage. She'll get mobility with Kinshi Knight, and that if that's all you want to do, that is completely fine. Like she will be a player phase delete button with high movement for the whole freaking game. It's like
Yeah.
actually that simple. The
Something
only
that I found on my save file is that I somehow did bring Mozu along and made her like a Dark Flyer, and I think that was part of my reason why I didn't think she was that good was because Dark Flyer is just such a weird hybrid class, and she is not made to be that unit.
No, and isn't that's like one of the path bonus things, isn't it? The Dark Flyer and Dread Scrolls.
You get it was either path bonus or it was like the free DLC of like you get one of them, and then if you want more, then you have to like buy the DLC maps. But there were a lot of like
Oh,
Anna's
okay.
gifts,
Oh, that's
I
right.
think they were
Okay.
called, where it's like you got a free witch thing, a free ballistician thing, a free Paragon scroll, a free Dread Fighter thing, a free Dark Flyer thing. They had so many little freebies that they just gave you for connecting via Spot Pass.
Yeah. Okay. And like, because the thing is with Mozu is like you don't have to use her, but like if you use her correctly, just immediately give her a heart seal. Then she's
Mhm.
quite good actually. Like she will not suffer for very long. The worst thing you can do is use her and keep her in Villager. That just
Yeah.
kind of accomplishes nothing. She's not getting
It's like-
better skills. She's not getting better stats. It's awful damage.
It's like, ooh,
She's
congratulations, you got
taking counters.
Underdog.
Yeah, wow,
Yeah.
underdog. Ooh. So it's like that's not good. And the thing is, like, you only get 2 heart seals very early on in the game. So if you were planning on doing something like how I talked about earlier, like if you wanted to go Paladin Jacob and Wyvern Corrin for like chapter 10, you're probably not using Mozu. But if you want to use Mozu, then that's perfectly fine. It's a solid choice. She's actually pretty fun. Nyx is just kind of like, Nyx just frustrates me. Like, I think her hit rates a lot of the times are awful. She is Micaiah without a Thani tome. But you can use everybody in this game. I'm not going to pretend like you can't.
Yeah, Nyx I
But
found good as a glass cannon promoting into Witch and then with a lightning tome, because then she would at least have the base magic to
and
use
like
it
the
decently.
brave. Okay.
And then with the brave effect, you just 2-shot zap zap. But then you have like the, wasn't lightning one of those things like it halves your magic every time you use it, so you have to have like alternating, like, hey, I'll 1-shot this thing and then I'll tickle this other thing for a little bit and then I'll 1-shot that thing. And so I think I definitely used that. I definitely used Nyx and Ophelia in similar ways. As in that run, I remember distinctly doing that, and I also distinctly remember having a heck of a time on the Pegasus Knight map trying to keep them from getting 1-shot obliterated.
Yeah.
From 14 move Pegasus Knights, but
Yeah, and like I said, you can use anybody in this game if you have the knowledge to build them correctly and whatnot. Like, someone has soloed or largely soloed Conquest with Nyx on Lunatic. Like, you could do it.
yeah.
But like she can be difficult. It's not a unit I would recommend to someone that doesn't know what they're doing yet, by any means. Gunter's too low. Like, yeah, he's a backpack, but like he's the best
good backpack.
Yeah, he is excellent. And he also has a fast support with Corrin, I believe. So he gives like really good bonuses, and they get better very fast. And can get you into the Cav class line regardless of your gender. You'll just need an A or an S or whatever. And that already is really good too.
So I guess something we could do is just like build a team of like who, if I'm going into Conquest, and let's say I want to do this Ninja Corrin build.
Oh, you want a Ninja Corrin? Okay.
You talked about it. You said the Soul Ninja whatever was pretty good. I'm guessing I'll want male Corrin then for that for breakpoints. Who would you recommend as a team of just like, hey, if you were to say, hey, give this to someone, you kind of can't really go wrong with them.
Okay. So that's funny because the current run I'm doing, I am doing the Soul Ninja again with male Corrin. I just wanted to do it.
Fair enough.
Some of these characters, like, you can get away with in a sort of Binding Blade kind of way. Like, you can use them for 4 or 5 chapters and then drop them.
Yeah.
And that by itself is not bad. Like, it's perfectly fine to do. But it's also good because you can build supports with these people and then get their kids and then drop them. And sometimes the kids will also be kind of better replacements for them. Which is another thing about this tier list. I found it really interesting that you had Kana so high, when I think mostly everybody agrees that Kana's like the worst kid. Which is really funny. Because Kana, like, gosh, it's just kind of worse Corrin. Like, worse stats, worse growths. She'll get, like, Corrin's talent class because they share a base class. And, like, you can use them, but, like, they don't provide anything to you, like, out of the box, kind of. Whereas, like, Shigure out of the box is great. I love Shigure. Like, if you just get him and use the Offspring Seal or whatever, have him get Rally Speed, that's good enough, honestly. Like, he doesn't even really have to fight anything if you don't want to. And Ophelia is a similar kind of thing to Odin. Ophelia I would just recommend because she's so fun. I don't know if you've used Ophelia before.
Yeah, I did, definitely.
Okay. What mother did you give her? Do you remember?
Heck if I remember.
Okay.
And honestly, I don't remember. But what color hair did she have in my run? Let me see if I can scroll all the way up and find these images that I posted. Can you fill some time while I do that?
Yeah, sure. But like that's one thing I like to do with Ophelia is like you can get into insane skill builds with Ophelia if you really want to. But at a base level, if all you do is get an Odin Elise S support and then have Odin give Vantage to Ophelia, like out of the box, you have an excellent unit just kind of at your disposal. It's Nyx but better in every way. Like she has
Okay, it
Vantage if you want a Nos tank. She has better stats all around. She won't die to like one hit half the time. And even if she is low, you have Vantage and Guard and all that stuff.
So it looks like on my most recent run I did not use Ophelia, but I
Okay.
remember using Ophelia on the first run I did. And
Okay.
having fun with her, but I did like Witch Ophelia, which ends up turning out like a second Nyx. Very, very fast, very magically strong, very fragile.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't really messed around with like the Witch DLC stuff. I have it on my game card. I did look for it, but I don't have it on like the emulator that I usually play, so I haven't touched that.
Okay.
But
So
Silas
if I were
is
to be
solid,
building
Xander's
a
solid,
team, I would say something like this for sure.
Yeah.
Probably, but I don't necessarily know if I would need a second ninja with Corrin as a ninja.
Fair. I do
But-
really like Kaze though. Kaze helps
Yeah.
with a lot of really annoying things and makes them
His-
kind of trivial.
He is by far the fastest unit you have in Conquest.
Yeah, no,
Aside from like Niles can come close, some of the kids can probably come close, but
yeah, one thing I love about Kaze is just that like your Soul Ninja Corrin will have just kind of good stats across the board, like it's Corrin. But Kaze has like such overkill res that like he is so nice to just take out like swarms of mages and they do nothing to him. He makes so many parts of the game so much easier. And his sort of progression for skills can be kind of minimal too. He's just like a nice staple to have because, like I said, you don't have to like hardcore unit build for every person on your team. It's just not required a lot of the time.
sure.
But I would say even if you are going Soul Ninja Corrin, just you're probably gonna like using Kaze still. Kaze's just nice. You'll probably, I would recommend still using Odin for early game and then getting Ophelia and then probably just dropping him after that. Whereas Elise will probably stick around. You'll want to marry Azura to somebody. It doesn't super matter if you don't want Shigure to like really be a combat unit. But Shigure is such a nice deployment. Early rally speed is actually so great for a lot of different people. But these kinds of things you'll probably run into naturally because, I mean, you're going to use Azura the whole time you have her. That's not really going to be a problem.
Yeah. And then a lot of these units are like, I'm going to use while I have them, even if I drop them later.
Yeah.
Early on, especially.
Yeah, exactly. I would say that, like, the kids that are nice to get to actually, like, deploy and do something regularly are people like Ophelia, Shigure, and then I would say Soleil if you want. Soleil is pretty fun. But again, it's like another Soul Ninja thing. You probably don't need that with this specific team, but you can. I do really like Sophie. Sometimes, actually more often than not, Sophie is like better than my Silas at the time. So I kind of just swapped them out a little bit.
Yeah, my experience is that Sophie tended to be, for me, faster and maybe equal to, maybe slightly stronger, but that Silas was always far more bulky, but that also could be parent dependent.
Yeah. I never personally do anything with Kana. You can if you want, like I said, but it's not something I would recommend to somebody to like have an easier time in the game.
What are your thoughts on the mercenaries, Severa and Laszlo? Because
I
felt like they were never really good enough in any one like they're kind of middle of the road, like not hybrid units, but like kind of average, like they're decently fast, they're decently defensive, they're decently strong. But decent at a lot of stuff does not a unit make in Conquest Lunatic. So what do they actually grow into if you do use them? Because I feel like their stats when you get them are just not up to snuff.
Yeah, so I have not really used Laszlo long term. Um, I think you can if you want to, but I think Selena is much easier to use for that sort of purpose. And you're right in that Selena as a mercenary is like really underwhelming in like every
Just
way.
punched my microphone.
Oh, like Selena at base is really underwhelming in kind of every way. Like she has some speed, and like that's kind of it. But like once you look into like what other things that she can do, you're like, oh, this actually is not bad at all. She has a fast support with Camilla, which can get her into the Wyvern class tree. Which Selena has good speed, like she will just be fast. She won't really need a lot of speed fixing, but what she really needs is more damage, and the better class in general, like flying, more movement, all that stuff helps. And by going into Wyvern, not only do you get a higher might weapon type with axes, but you also get things like strength +2. And lunge is like actually kind of helpful for a lot of things. I really like the movement skills. I think they're fun. So like that is like a very easy thing, bare minimum. Wyvern Selena, I actually would recommend. I think it's really fun. And she gets out of that like, oh, she's like kind of mid at everything. She's maybe like a little faster than some people, and that's like kind of it. You just put her in like one better class that she can get very quickly through Camilla support. And you're like, hey, this is actually pretty good. Like I said, I have less experience with Laszlo. I basically just used Laszlo as like a pair up bot to get Soleil because I wanted to use Soleil. I'm sure you could do something with him, but you know, I'm not really the person to guide you on that super deeply. But if you want to use someone like Selena, I would recommend like Wyvern for her. That definitely helps.
How many
a lot.
heart seals do you get? And I guess how do you plan out their use?
Yeah. So that's another thing that like will be part of your planning, and you don't have to plan all of it at the very start.
Yeah, but like in general, how do I think about heart seals? When do I get them? When do I use them? Type thing.
Yeah, exactly. So what you have to think about first, I like to think of the game kind of in chunks. So like by chapter 10, I know that I get 2 heart seals. You get 1 heart seal from the staff store, the level 1 staff store, and then you get a heart seal drop from Haitaka on chapter 9. So the first like real checkpoint of the game in my mind is chapter 10. How are you solving chapter 10? If you were going like female Corin and Jacob, then I'd be like, okay, well, an easy sort of way to do this is heart seal Jacob. And if you're going Wyvern Corin, heart seal her. If you're not, maybe you're using Mozu, use your second heart seal for Mozu, whatever. In this scenario, you really don't need to heart seal Corin very early at all. You don't need to be a ninja for like the early game. What I would say, I guess for your early crowd, I really like Wyvern Elise. I've done that in this last run that I'm doing. I absolutely adore it. It is so fun, but it's not something I would really recommend to most people. Because if you're less experienced with the game, you kind of need a little bit more room with 2 healers. So I wouldn't really recommend you do that. You would have room to use Mozu here if you would like. If you wanted to give Mozu like a really good try. And then I would recommend you like pair her with Niles and get them married. Also for Nina, partially, if you wanted to use Nina. But that you don't have to use Nina if you don't want to. Those two together both help each other be better in a lot of ways. And then after chapter 10, if you don't need to heart seal a second person, which with this team you really don't need to, I don't think. You have the option of going like strategist Felicia so she can use tomes, but you don't need to do that really. You know, that's kind of up to you, but don't feel pressured to do it. And then if you are planning on getting Ophelia, once you get out of chapter 11, I would say the stairs map, then you can start thinking about okay, maybe now I Heart Seal Odin with your second Heart Seal. And the reason you do that is you put him into Samurai, and if he's, by then, if you've been using him for like NOS tanking and stuff like that, he'll be at or around like level 10, so he'll only need 2 levels to get Vantage while building support with Elise, so that you can give Vantage to Ophelia, which is kind of a game changer. That's like a simple thing to do that is really
Vantage
helpful.
Ophelia, really?
Yes. Because Ophelia is not like super bulky, but she is bulky enough to take 1 hit a lot of the times. So whether that's Vantage NOS tanking, or it's just with the pair up guard, Vantage crit, vengeance, etc., it just helps her survivability a lot, and it's pretty fun, honestly. That's like bare minimum what I would recommend you do for Ophelia. You don't have to get into like giving her life and death and like ridiculous stuff if you don't really want to. But if you want to use her seriously, I would say you should give her Vantage at the very least.
Okay, because something I always, and this is definitely the part of my brain that's like, you're thinking about this too much like a Fire Emblem game, of I want to have more mages on my team. I just want to have more mages on my team. It's like, can you tell my problem here? I mean,
yeah, you Soren enjoyer, you.
Exactly. Look, I love all the Tellius mages. I made that video knowing full well that it was a dagger into my own heart because Tellius did mages dirty. It was a complaint, not because I hate mages, but because I want to love them.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I use Merrick and Lind in FE1, okay?
Yeah. Let me think here, because I mean, like I said, I wouldn't really recommend Nyx, but one thing you could still consider, if you want to do the Soul Ninja Korin thing, you absolutely can. But if you want a more magical built unit, you can go the Wyvern version instead. You can do that male or female if you'd like.
Yeah, do that into Malignite. So it was a Nor Noble into Malignite?
Yeah, so if you're going
into Wyvern and then Malig?
Yeah, so like whether you pick Ninja or Dragon talent, this does not really affect your current team that much. So you can still go male Korin. You'll still have a spare Heart Seal for Korin for Chapter 10 if you want to get them into Wyvern that early. You get like Strength +2 and stuff like that. And just having more mobility on that map is very nice. And then when you get the 3rd Heart Seal, you can just get Odin his levels kind of randomly. There are a few spots that make him easier to do that. Like the boat map where you get Leo, you can just have him hack at like some of the what are they called, the axe units, or like the staffers just standing there, get him like a free level or 2. But if you go like a more magical built Korin, you can use like Heart Seal early on Mozu, Heart Seal early Korin, probably the second one before Chapter 10, and get your axe rank up in Chapter 10. And then once you promote, you can just go nuts with like the Bolt Axe or Fire Tomes, Forged Fire Tomes. And then the Levin Sword is also very fun. And that can be, like I said, that can be male or female Korin. It doesn't really matter all that much for the magic boon. So if you want to go that route as well, it doesn't really like mess up your current team as it stands.
Yeah. And then is there anyone else that I'm like that are up here in this like block of units that I've not touched that you would be like, hey, don't forget about them, or don't like, do you have any experience with them at all, I guess, even, or that are like notable to talk about?
I would say, yeah, I mean, a lot of them, I would say, like when you get them in like their joining chapter, or maybe one chapter later, you can deploy them just to have another person there, like Baruka. Baruka's perfectly helpful for Chapter 10, but with your current team, you may or may not have deployments for her, depending on what supports or backpacks you want to bring in. But, you know, it is a use and whatnot tier unit, I would say, for this team. If you really want to use Soleil, you'll have to do that kind of with Laszlo bare minimum if you're not using him as a combat unit. But I wouldn't focus on trying to get every kid either. It's just kind of not necessary to do. And building supports takes long enough kind of as it is. The other thing that we can talk about here too is you will, around the mid game, make sure you don't over heart seal people, because I did that once, where I was like, I think it was like my second or third run of the game, where I was just like so into the unit building. I had more plans for everybody. I was heart sealing all over the place. And then I got to the Kitsune map and I didn't have a heart seal for Xander. And I'm like, oh God, this is going to be terrible.
Why is that so important? Is just because of avoiding the horse weakness?
Yeah, exactly. Xander heart seal class is Wyvern. So you can just put him in Wyvern Lord with a Beast Killer and some pair up. And a lot of them won't even do damage to him, or they'll do damage in like the single digits. And then the only ones you really have to worry about are the ones with life and death that will do like plus 10. Yeah. And if they're doubling him, that might be kind of scary. But that's just one of those things. Like, I don't want you to get to the Kitsune map and then be like, oh, I have all these like horse mounted units for the Kitsune map, and I don't have like a backup plan easy out button, which is Xander. Mm-hmm. And I could see how you'd like hear me say that and be like, oh, that's kind of annoying, isn't it? Like, just to reclass Xander for one map. But really, you're doing it for 3 maps. Because having Xander as a paladin on chapter 20 is also not super helpful. You can't really get him around super well without having someone else be his fairy.
Yeah, when my flyers are already going to be kind of strapped as it is.
Yeah. Like, you kind of want Xander to still be able to contribute, even if it is just with the Beast Killer. Like, he won't be doing effective damage, but like he'll still one-shot like some on Miojis on that map or whatever the class is called. So like he can still be around, he can still contribute, he can still like be a force. And then chapter 21 is another one of those Kitsune map types of things where like you can play it the real way if you'd like. But if it gets too annoying for you, you have a get out of jail free card with Wyvern Xander. Pair him up with Corrin, and with like a tonic, and just like maybe like 1 or 2 Vulns, he will get through that map, and you can just skip it if it is annoying you. So it's like it's advice to make the game easier, but also if it is too annoying, it's like you just kind of get out, and it doesn't like ruin your fun. Yeah. Rather than just like, oh, you have to reclass Xander for 1 map and then put him straight back to Paladin, because that's not really what I'm recommending you do. Once I get him out of Paladin, I usually leave him out of Paladin, I think.
Just using Siegfried as like a +4 defense, like bracelet, basically.
No, once we're out of Wyvern, he will be using Siegfried again.
You put in a Great Knight then, or
no? So this is what I wanted to talk about was who you wanted Xander's backpack to be. Which usually the easy answer is Charlotte. The Berserker pair-up bonuses are really good. A lot of strength, some good speed. I've also used Selena as a Xander backpack twice now, and I did like that as well. They both give pretty similar bonuses, but the cool part about Selena is she can be a bow knight while Xander is a hero, so she can still be his fairy and then just switch and have him Juggernaut.
Give extra mobility, yeah.
And also her Heartseal class is Pegasus because of her mom. And that actually helps with stuff like Hinoka's chapter. Whereas like Charlotte will get Paladin from Partner Seal with Xander, but I don't believe, I have to look at what her Heartseal class is. I think it's not a flying class.
You're making a pretty strong case for bringing on Selena, even if just as a backpack, Xander backpack.
No, I really do like Selena, and this is kind of the thing with Conquest in general, is like there's not one way to use a lot of these people, which is really cool. As long as you commit to one of them, you just can't like say Selena's going to be my Xander backpack, and then late into the game, it's like, oh, actually, I want her to be a combat unit. It's like
you can't do that. No, you can't change your mind.
Yeah. It's going to be hard to really do both. But as long as you commit to one and stick to it, you'll get pretty good results. Xander's kid, I would not say is very important. You can get him if you want to. I think he's just kind of Xander, but worse.
A lot of the kid maps I'll probably just be going to just for extra experience.
Yeah, exactly. And building supports, and some of them have really good items, which is why, like, even if you're not using Ophelia, her paralog is so good for the items in it. Because you get the Horse Spirit, which is excellent, and you get the Calamity Gate, which is excellent. And that opens the game up for any mage that you're using, even if it isn't her. Whereas Siegbert's paralog is just like a experience map with an asterisk, because it is like endless reinforcements that don't give you experience, and it's kind of annoying. I don't really like the map. He's kind of Xander without as much bulk and without Siegfried, but if you get it, then you may as well play it for those experience and unit building kind of reasons. But don't feel pressured to use him unless you need like a shelter bot or something like that, which is also perfectly fine by itself.
Fair enough.
Have you gotten Izana before?
Yes.
Okay, do you remember how to do that?
Yeah, you have a level 3 hot spring.
Yeah, exactly. You have which is like a pretty useless thing in the My Castle.
Yeah, it's just a waste of points. But I mean, by that point, you have so many points, and it's like you can't get them until like chapter 22 or 21 anyway.
Yeah, it takes a while, but Rally Luck is oddly sometimes helpful for certain units that like have luck problems. Occasionally, Camilla will have luck problems, or Kaze will have luck problems, and sometimes that can be patched up just by a pair up. I don't know if you know that, but a pair up just gives like dodge +5 at base.
In addition to all the stats and guard stance.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's like irrelevant of support level. That's like a thing I didn't know at first either. I was like, oh, that's like a sorry, it's like a really simple fix to some of that stuff. If you want to get Izana and you have spare like points in the My Castle, feel free to get him. I wouldn't say the same about Flora. You just don't really need Flora. She's not going to be a combat unit really by any means. You probably don't need another Felicia or Felicia but worse by that point. And she's the Fire Orb level 3. I wouldn't worry about that. But if you have spare points for Izana, that's kind of nice. He's also Rally Magic too.
Yeah.
Which is not as easy to come by. Because
he has some decent rallies in those two, and then his passive is like just less damage taken for everyone.
Yeah, I forget. It's something like that. I think it also applies to your units though too.
Yeah, it's the weird passive where all units within 2 tiles or 3 tiles deal 2 less damage.
Yeah. I've never really bothered with like that so much, but the rally is nice if you got a spare deployment slot, stuff like that. Who else do we need to talk about? Keaton, I know you can use Keaton. I've only really used Keaton to get his daughter. She was very fun, but I wouldn't stress about it too much. I think you already have enough to work with here to worry about that for right now. Also, Kaze's kid, I wouldn't worry about too hard. I would play the paralog, but don't worry about
so many good items.
Don't
so many good stat boosters.
Yeah, the dragon herbs are pretty fun. But I wouldn't worry about like using her too legitimately if you don't want to.
She's there for multiplayer meme builds.
Yeah, no, I have seen like the what is it, the Miracle Luck Midori build, stuff like that. It's like it's funny. But who else?
Yeah, I think the rest of these I'm probably, because this is just basically child units, Nyx, Laszlo, and then like Shura. Do I get Shura or do I get Boots, I guess is the next question.
So this is another one of those things that like once you kind of learn the rules, you're allowed to break them. So I would recommend you just recruit Shura. On like future runs, feel free to kill him for the boots, but the boots actually aren't as big of a deal as I initially thought they would be.
They're only +1 movements.
Yeah.
and they're pretty late in the game, and a lot of the maps that you play afterwards are like, yeah, the movement matters, but like a lot of times you're not necessarily moving your max distance anyway, unless you're doing a specific kill boss cheese strat.
Yeah, and like just to give you an example, like you don't need boots necessarily for a lot of things in this game. So like if you're doing like the rescue turn 1 strat to kill Takumi at endgame, the person carrying your Takumi killer needs 9 movement, which can be achieved by an 8 move class and a boots, or if the person you're carrying just gives +1 move on pair up, then you don't need boots. None of the other people doing the staffing need boots either.
Plus, I'm also pretty sure I have boots anyway from getting the double path bonus.
Oh, yeah, that might be true too. I mean, I would probably recommend you avoid that unless you, like, really want to. But
Sure.
You also get a pair of boots, I believe, on chapter 23. I believe it's that chapter, because there's 2 chests there on the first Takumi chapter. And that is kind of enough, because if you're going for, like, a flyer skip on Hinoka's map, for example, it does help a lot to have a 10 move flyer and then the rest be like 8 or 9 moves with or without pair-ups. So you can use the boots from that to give it to like Camilla or something. So Camilla's your 10 move unit to get to Hinoka, and then you just have a 9 move to kill the second guy on the seize point. And then you don't really need much movement boosting beyond that. Boots are like a helpful thing, but you know, if you feel like it'd be nice to just have a unit that does something, I would take Shura. And I would recommend if someone hasn't played Conquest, just take Shura first. If you decide, like, you know the game well enough after that that you don't need him to do anything, you can take the boots, which is, to be fair, what I kind of do most of the time. I just like boots. But I wouldn't recommend people that are less experienced with the game to kill Shura.
Sure.
Because he's pretty good in his own right, actually, especially for the next map that you play.
Yeah. And then last question, I guess, before we start wrapping up. When it comes to the end game, when it comes to prepping the whole like pass staffer or whatever, who do you use for that? How do you use for that? Is there someone you just capture who does the role? Like, how does that work?
That's another good question. So, well, you can always ask me, like, if you need refreshers on like what Corrin needs. If you want to run 1 round with Corrin, you can do it with other people, but Corrin is kind of the easiest one to build for, I think.
Mm-hmm.
What you need
Cutting
beyond
through dragon
that,
skin's important.
yeah, it is definitely helpful. The other requirements for that is you need 3 rescue casts, so you can use 1 somewhere else in the run, assuming you get both. The first one's in chapter 9, and then the other one, I forget exactly what chapter it comes in on. But you'll have 2, total of 4 casts. Just save 3 of them. And then you also need either someone with pass, or you need just an end trap, which means you need a 4th staffer, but you'll have plenty of staffers. You'll have Felicia, probably, depending on what you do with Elise, that'll be an option. If you marry, like, Mozu Niles and get Nina, her as adventurer can be a staffer, like, Ashura as well. So you won't have problems with that. Shigure also can use staffs, because rescue's E rank, which is actually really nice.
Mm-hmm. So you just need any base staff wielding class.
Yeah, for the rescues, yes. Entrap, I believe, is rank B. So you're like actual.
So that's probably a Felicia.
Yeah, Felicia or Elise or something like that. Or if you recruit Forest, or something like that. Like your actual staffer will probably do the entrap job. Or you can have a pass flyer, which you can capture in the top left of Hinoka's map. That is an option to you, but you don't need to do that if you don't feel like it, or if you're like doing the blitz strat to get that map done fast, which is pretty fun in my opinion. But you have to have one of those 2 things, either an entrap and a pass flyer, and you need 3 rescue staffs. And then you also need 2 people with shelter to get your Azura dances off. And then you need, which you will have plenty of. You'll have Silas. Xander could technically do that. Gunter can do that if he's not carrying Corin. Sophie, who else,
so
etc.
That
Even Siegbert could do that too.
Mhm.
So that won't be a problem. Parry as well. I've brought in endgame parry that I did not use in the rest of the run just for shelter. That's perfectly fine. And then you'll just need 1 or 2 other people to separate the people that Azura's paired up with so that you can shelter Azura again, because you'll dance 3 times on that turn 1. And then what else am I forgetting? You'll need a good rally, which I would recommend you capture the Master of Arms Rally Man on Chapter 23. And you can capture a Pass Flyer if you'd like. You can capture Haitaka if you would like. And I would recommend that you capture Haitaka, especially if you're not super comfortable with Chapter 10 yet. And you're trying different builds or different units and things. I would recommend
we'll
get
see
him.
how I am, but I remember Chapter 10 actually being fun and enjoyable last time I played it. It was, still difficult, but maybe it was also just the builds that I had that I came around something that worked out. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, so if you feel like Haitaka would help you, I would get him. I would also just mention there are sort of little opportunity costs with these kinds of things, because Haitaka takes 3 persuasions to get before Chapter 10.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you're messing with your system clock, if you want to get him in the same play session, you'll have to save Paralog 1 and the invasion, which means you're getting Mozu later. So if you want to use Mozu, you'll want to get Mozu earlier and get her started earlier. And you might not even need Haitaka by that point. You might just be set regardless. But capture Rally Man, bare minimum. I think you'll be set with everything else, as long as you remember kind of what your plans are. And like I said, you can always shoot me a DM, ask a question if you're unsure about when to do something. Please, I encourage it.
And all of these plans are subject to change, obviously, as I play through, discover new things.
Yeah.
Turns out this unit didn't get trained enough, so they're on the bench now.
Yeah, exactly.
As things are wont to do. But so basically, seems like I have a reasonable team. Seems like I have a lot of swap out options and other things to build around. If I want to, reserve the right to rescue and trap, I can.
Yeah, and I would recommend that do.
Yeah, and then maybe after I play this enough, I can be okay, let's go back to my other save and see if this is even possible. I'm sure it is. I'm sure I'll remember what I was doing, once I play some more Conquest, but yeah, so took only about an hour for you to sell me on trying it again, and then another, 45 minutes of building a potential team, which honestly feels like I just kind of picked the units I like anyway.
Yeah, and in some sense, you can kind of do that. You just might need some extra knowledge for certain people to make your life easier, but...
Yeah. Well, expect to see more Discord messages over the next couple weeks as I probably take a little bit of time before I get into it, but then I'll probably get into it. We'll try it out. We'll see what happens.
Nice. Alrighty. I'm glad I didn't have to pay you any money to play Conquest again.
Yeah, nah. Just having a nice conversation. Sometimes it's all it takes. Ultimately, I was never really I think I meme that I'm super against Conquest or not. I'm really not. The more I sit down and think about it, the more I'm yeah, it is a game that knows what it's about. I just always felt like I wouldn't be what the game is about. But, I'm willing to give it one more shot, give it an honest, a real honest try, and see if I can just get it going, get it working. Because if I end up liking it, great. If not, oh well. I probably will play it one more time and never play it again regardless. But that's just how I am with games. I don't generally blitz replay them over and over again. But I mean, if I like it enough, it could become a comfort game that I do come back to in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we've said a bunch already, like Conquest wants you to play Conquest, and if you go into it not with that expectation, I definitely get why people get frustrated by a lot of what's in it. And the same is true with Thracia. I think to some extent the same is true with like FE12. But if you try to like meet the game halfway, there is a lot to enjoy, in my opinion. And I think there's still potential for that for you, with the right, helpful information and stuff like that. So I hope you enjoy it more this time around.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Well, Elut, where can people find you if they want to hear more from you? What have you been doing, I guess?
Yeah. So I'm Elut, just on YouTube, Elut. I also am Elut TV on Twitch. I stream there sometimes. I don't really have a schedule or anything like that. I make Fire Emblem videos also sometimes because I just like to talk about the games. I'm a huge Tellius fanboy. I love Thracia. I love Binding Blade, and Conquest is kind of the newest, like, big development for me. It has become like a top 5 game, and I don't know. I just love this series. I love talking about the games with you as well. This is super fun as always. So I'll have to get you on a Conquest stream one day soon. That'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see when that happens. And that's it for the video. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm going to use this opportunity to give a big shout out to the Laguzguard members of the channel. That's Royal Laguzguard Tier, The Forgotten L, and Minirop, and Laguzguard Tier, C2 Peekly, Enigmatic Mr. L, Mad Moke, Bro Duderman, Kumi, Miss Mesmerism, Drumstep 913, Relaz 6, Merlinin, and Reely. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel, supporting the Fire Emblem content that I do, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Until next time, this is Mythical Zenith signing out.